Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. Today, we're going to be talking about self-confidence, health, vitality, and if you stay until the end, we've got a special visualization for you. So today's guest, we welcome back Glen Mitchell. Welcome back. And Glen, just an introduction if you haven't come across Glen before. Glen is a health and lifestyle transformation coach, and he helps people get much more out of life and many more years. So welcome back to the show, Glen.
Hey, Johnny, good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you again. I always love our conversations, whether it's on a podcast or outside of a podcast. And you're always helping me educate me around health as well, which is a key thing to anything we do, as we know from our personal growth world. So, Glen, could you just, this obviously continues from our response blueprint conversations we've had previously about earlier elements of the response blueprint. So, first of all, could you just give us a quick reminder about what the response blueprint is and tell us a little bit about the P that we're going to be covering today, the philosophy within that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the response blueprint is something that I personally made and designed in order to take people from where they are with their health and their lifestyle to really where they want to be, to where they want to go. And the P is philosophy. Because what I found when I was working with clients in a one-to-one or a group basis is that as much education as you give somebody, if you're not addressing the beliefs and the identity and the values and the rules that they have for life, the chances of them taking the information that you give them and actually implementing it for the long term is less and less and less. And for me as a coach, that's really what I would like is, I know it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but I'd rather you didn't have me for life as a coach. I'd rather you can make it for yourself.
Yeah, love that. And it's quite empowering in a way, what you're saying as well. It's, you don't want people like hanging on to someone for the rest of their life. We're here as being in that world as well. We're here as guides, but here as like coaches, helping people to move on their journey, ultimately maybe providing them some tools, some kind of guidance, helping them see some of those blind spots, and ultimately getting them clear on where they want to be and closer towards that, if not kind of hitting those milestones. So yeah, I do appreciate what you said there about not wanting someone to be with you for life. And that's always a debate I used to actually have in one coaching program. Like they were talking about how people renewing and things like that. And I was like, well, I think I've created a very, helped them develop or create an even stronger version of themselves, and they're very equipped to go further as well. So, definitely appreciate that angle and spin on you put on it. So, tell us a little bit about rules and values then. And actually, those are quite hard things for some of us to identify with, right? Or kind of really understand what they are for ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the rules and the values, I think we've probably all heard of it in a company context where it's like, these are the values of a company, but a lot of us don't actually take that and apply it to our own lives. And it really is so important. I think one of the main reasons that we struggle with, and this can be applied to any area, but my area is health, vitality, and lifestyle. And the reason that a lot of us struggle with actually implementing things as we would want is because we don't set the game up to win. We don't have an internal system, an internal dialogue that supports the goals that we set for ourselves and the way that we want to live. So there are different ways of handling this, but if we can set up our identity, which is a combination of our rules and our values, correctly, it makes decision-making in the moment so much easier. And that's what we're going to head to. At the end of this podcast, I'm going to do a visualization that will just help you get into contact with the values that you want to have, that you want to live your life with. And it's going to make it easy for you to then recall that when you're maybe heading for one mince pie too many.
Yeah. I like what you said about helping us make the decisions in the moment as well. because yeah, often we've got so many decisions in this day and age, especially with all the information thrown at us. So if we can do a bit of work today to help us understand our values a little bit more, that's great. So why do you think people are, from your experience, maybe you've gone through it? I know for me, certainly, I've struggled to understand what I really want or who I really am. What kind of do you think stops people from understanding what their true values are?
I don't think we're set up from a young age to actually take those things into consideration. We're put into an education system that basically just moves us into a certain way of being. It doesn't really address, okay, so who is the person that you want to be? I mean, I know from myself, until I actually got into the personal development and personal growth world, I'd never even looked at that. And I was way into my 30s before I looked into this side of things. So not knowing these things makes it really difficult for us, because we haven't got the blueprint, we haven't got the program or the coding in us to operate how we want to be. We're usually running on other people's ideals of what they want us to be.
Yeah. So not kind of like picking that up, not necessarily being taught it, and it's kind of being given other programs out there which may or may not support us, right? In terms of where we want to go. Gotcha. Okay. So when you with touching on identity a little bit, and you said about like understanding like your identity and who you are, again, like, is there any, do you find people are often misaligned between the identity that they need right now to where their goals are?
Yeah, I think, and again, this is a personal take. I think a lot of the problem when we do also personal growth work, we step into this and we're almost told that we need to eradicate the bad parts of ourselves, like the inner critic, the voice, the negative voice. And I know from myself, I have not been able to do that. I have not got rid of that little voice that doesn't necessarily give me good advice. So my personal belief is that we shouldn't be trying to eradicate those things. We need to accept them as part of us. And accepting them as part of us means we can have a lot more compassion towards them. And we don't necessarily have to listen to them as much, because we're not trying to. Have you noticed when you try and push something away, it just comes back stronger and stronger and stronger? And I think with that, with identity and with parts that maybe we don't want, we'd like to move away from, because we put so much focus on getting rid of them, they actually end up being closer and closer and more in our sphere. Whereas if we accept them as parts of a whole, and when they come up, we can listen to them as parts of a whole, but appreciating the differences of them, so we can have multiple parts in ourselves. That enables us to have compassion for that voice that is telling us that we don't need to go to the gym, that we should order another takeaway this week, that opening that second bottle of wine won't really hurt, that binging Netflix and only getting 5 hours sleep tonight, what will make up for it at the weekend. All of these things that inner voice can tell us, we can actually deal with through compassion rather than trying to beat it away.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's I sometimes think of it, I don't know about you, for me when I've done that, a little bit like a kind of like 3-year-old kid within me, like just going like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. And then, sometimes it wins, I'll be honest. But like it's not necessarily when I approached it like that as the 3-year-old version of myself, that kind of like inner critic, I think it was realizing that if I keep screaming like, no, we should be doing this, should be having that negative thought, shouldn't be doing that. Oh, I didn't go to the gym today. And like those kind of things, like that wasn't doing any favors. When it's like, look, we're just going to go, we're just going to do a little bit here. This is going to be for our own benefit. Maybe we can, sort something out for you. That kind of changed my relationship almost with that inner critic, personally, for me.
I think, yeah, I think that's great advice, Johnny. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't treat a 3-year-old, would you? Like sometimes we treat ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, very true. Or I think I saw Jay Shetty describe it as well, like as a younger sibling. Like if you had a younger sibling, if you can't think of the 3-year-old version of yourself, although you might not have a younger sibling, so you might want to think of the 3-year-old version of yourself. But yeah, having that compassion, I really, really like that and what you said on that. So with the with kind of like your experience and really helping people in particular with just coming to like health as well as like transformation as well and getting people, you know, around. Do you find sometimes, if we touch on rules a little bit, that sometimes people set the rules up in difficult ways to win sometimes at life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great comment and something to speak to, is that people often, Tony Robbins calls it double binding yourself, where you will set a rule up, but you'll also have another rule that completely contradicts and means you can't win.
Mm.
And I think that's something, unless you look at carefully, I know in myself, I never realized that I had rules that were not actually, they were rules that I had, but they weren't allowing me to actually get to where I wanted to go because I had another rule that was completely contradicting it. So I think that's really important to work through. I think when we can look at our rules, so for example, like in order to be fit and healthy, I need to not eat junk food. It's pretty good. Now, you would think that was a really, really good rule to have. In order to be
Mm.
healthy, let's not eat junk food. However, that does presuppose that in your life, you are never going to be in a situation where you're going to be put and you are only faced with an option that you may consider junk food, because also my junk food may be very different to your junk food, Johnny.
Mm.
So our definitions are different. And then if we break that and we have that junk food, our rule for being healthy can be affected then for, could be a day, could be a week, could be a month, depends how much that internalized rule is within us. So we need to make the rules easy to win.
Mm.
And so we can have rules that support us, so forward rules, and we can have rules that take us away, so backward rules. So a backward rule would be something along the lines of, if I do not sleep well, then I will not perform at work the next day.
Mm.
So both parts of that rule are setting you up for failure if you do not manage to sleep well that evening. And as we all know, sleeping well every night of your life is not always possible. So when you have this internalized rule and you don't have anything that can soften it and be like, if I don't sleep well this evening, I can use this to support me during the next day, is a much better rule to have. So then you know that you've got a fallback of certain things. And this is what I'll work with my clients on with something like sleep, is that, okay, so you didn't have a good night's sleep. How can we make sure you still have a good day? And then you internalize that as a rule because you know you've got things to support you. And all of a sudden you're in a much better place for your life.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Forwards and backwards rules. And with your instance there, the examples you used there were like the junk food one. Like it's almost saying like, if I have junk food, you know, my health and fitness, which I would say health and fitness, you would just say that as a value, pretty good one, right? It's a pretty good value, but like you've got you make it very difficult for the rest of your life because, like you're saying, it's never going to have junk food again. It's like, what is junk food, and is that like never, or you know, it's maybe. I mean, when I was looking at this and thinking, I was like, maybe I set myself up to win by just saying it's having a certain amount of drinks of water a day. You know, maybe it's just a couple of bits of water, so it's just something I've got to do for each day. Do you think also sometimes people put like the standards too high? And what I mean by that, I just mean in your experience is perhaps like to them being fit and healthy means having to run a marathon or something like that. Does that happen as well?
Yeah, especially with, the A-type personalities that we deal with a lot in the coaching world. They come to us and they want performance, but it's balancing getting them to be the best they can be, but not just for that one thing. So we're not an Olympic athlete. An Olympic athlete trains for 4 years to perform in their event for 3 days. In 100 meters, it's 10 seconds. They say, Usain Bolt, he spent 4 years training to run 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Most of us aren't in that sphere.
Yeah.
So what I prefer to work people with is much more, and my mantra, much more life out of many more years, is encapsulated by this. It's getting the life out of you for as long as possible, rather than taking you into peak state really quickly, but then you end up injured, or you just can't keep up with it over the long term. So you end up putting the weight back on, you end up going back to your old life. For me, it's all about longevity.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Rather than just, we see this in professional football. Just thinking of the World Cup, I'm just looking at some of the ex World Cup stars. The people like the Ronaldos or Michael Owen. Obviously, admittedly, Michael Owen wasn't on a Ronaldo level, but like those kind of people, and later down the line, they're perhaps not in that peak state, let's say peak condition they were during their years. So yours is about making sure we can have a sort of almost consistency, or kind of like lined a kind of good health peak to be at throughout. That'd be fair to say.
It is, and you raise a really good point there, talking about professional sports people, and we can look at this with identity with film stars, but and professional sports people, because often their identity is so tied up into their success as a sports person. When their career ends, they look around and it's like, oh, I don't have to train 8 hours today, and I'm not running out in front of 60,000 people this weekend. I'm not getting that sense of excitement when the ball hits the back of the net. All of a sudden, again, we come down to rules and values and identity. All of that goes, and then you find that, yes, maybe they're not looking after themselves because they don't have those goals to aim for anymore and that identity to support them. So they end up falling into bad habits. What we want to do is, dare I say it, more everyday people that aren't operating at that kind of level, is we want to instill long-term rules that will lead to long-term success.
And do you think that needs to start with having certain goals, or is it better to kind of just start with standards? And when I say goals, I mean not in the sense as necessarily a professional sportsman or woman or something like that, but maybe just does it start from like understanding where they want to go, or is it about setting the standards first of all?
Yeah, so my belief is that goals is usually followed by strategy, and strategy is the second thing down the line. The vision and the way you are, like the identity, is what comes first. And then when you set your goals from that and you're in the right place to action those goals, then you can move through that with strategy. Going to goals and then strategy first and missing that foundational piece of the puzzle, I believe, makes it really difficult to actually actualize what you've put in place, because you're not putting your physical and emotional state in the right place to be able to move forward towards those things. They end up very just arbitrary goals.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I like that. It's so it's about that, having that vision and identity first of that person who's in the vision, and then kind of building back from goals and that. Okay, and then like the strategy. Gotcha. And those role, and then the things unfold naturally. But like, yeah, and that makes sense of the sportsmen as well, sportsmen, sportswomen as well, who kind of like gone past it. It's like, yeah, and they've had that like vision. They've had, whether they realised it necessarily consciously, this is the process they're going through. Not all of us do, but it's like, yeah, they had this vision, like, I want to be the best footballer in the world, and they may have done that or be close to it, as an example from football, from the World Cup just finishing. And then it's like done that, and it's like, okay, what's my next vision and identity? Exactly.
Yeah. And if they don't look at that, then where do they head? Which is why you see a lot of, film stars and professional footballers, they are quite aimless after they finish their careers.
Very good point. And it can happen to people outside of that as well, but just on a repeat, unfortunately, in life. So yeah, Glenn, really great chat. Now, before we end, obviously we were talking about doing a visualization exercise. So would love to go through that now for the next few minutes or so.
Super. So actually, this leads into perfectly what we were talking about, and that is coming into contact with and being able to internalize someone that can help you. So I'm going to take you all through short visualization. So to start with, just get yourselves comfortable. If it's comfortable for you to do so, you can close your eyes down and begin by focusing your thoughts on your breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in easily and effortlessly. Each breath allows you to become more relaxed and comfortable. Outside sounds only allow you to go deeper inside. A reminder of how good it is to leave the noise and the stress of the outside world and journey into the quiet and peace of your inner world. As you start to feel a deep sense of relaxation, picture yourself walking along a beach or in a forest, anywhere that feels comfortable and secure for you. As you walk, notice all the details of the landscape around you. You notice in front of you a body of water, a lake. You walk up to the edge, enjoying the light reflecting off the water itself. You decide to pick up a pebble, and you drop it into the water. You notice the water rippling out, and as the ripples flow further out, they eventually slow down. Then the water once again becomes quiet and peaceful. Now, standing on the edge of the body of water, you notice somebody sat a few feet away. They turn and they smile. You notice it's you, an older, wiser, more vibrant and healthy version of you. You approach them. You are about to meet your future self. You greet your future self, and you notice the way your future self returns your greeting, welcoming you. Take a moment to really look at your future self, a healthy, vital, strong, happy version of you. What do they look like? What does their hair look like? What does their skin look like? Notice how this person stands. Get a sense of this person's essence. Commit this vision to memory. Now, ask your future self the following question. What do I need to know to get me from where I am now in my health and lifestyle to where you are? What would be most helpful? Listen to what your future self has to tell you. Good. Ask yourself one final question. What is one word that is important for you to remember when you're feeling down or in need of support going towards all your goals? What is that one word? Remember it. Bringing this visit to a close, thank your future self for being with you today and sharing so much wisdom. Now take a deep breath, breathing in the experience, remembering what it is that you need to remember. Turn your back and start to walk away, happy to leave and content with what you have learnt here today. I'm going to count from 3 to 1. When I count to 1, you will be refreshed and ready to remember everything about your inner journey. When you open your eyes, please remain silent and just jot down the things you may want to remember. 3, coming back to the present time, feeling more alert. 2, stretching your body, feeling the ground beneath you. And 1, opening your eyes, feeling refreshed and alert.
Thank you, Glenn. That's good. Very visual in mine, I found anyway. And yeah, it's good to kind of get a new perspective and have that quiet time in between to kind of just reflect on or listen to yourself or higher self a little bit more.
And that's exactly what we're doing in that process. And because you've now got a very clear visual picture of what that person looks like, I use this personally myself all the time, is that if I'm in a moment where I'm making a decision and I'm not sure about that decision, I will just check in with that future self. That I'll pull that person to mind and I'll just say, so what do you think? What do you think? And you'll always get the right answer.
That's great guidance to kind of end a great conversation on with just checking in with yourself rather than trying to get everyone else's opinion as well. Like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? They all say contradictory things and you get confused. So just listen to yourself at the end and that future self.
100%.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Glenn, for that visualization and the conversation today. Really appreciate you as always. Just if people want to get in contact with you or find out a bit more about some of your work, where's the best place for them to find you?
So probably the best thing right now is in January, I'm launching my Vital, which is a 10-day group detox. It's really for those that are wanting to get a kickstart on their health, vitality, and lifestyle transformation for 2023. You can find out about that. You can connect with me on Instagram, which is Thrive Through Life, or I'm sure we can put something in the show notes to link to where you need to go to find out more. Yeah,
and as we were saying before the show, will certainly be something I'm interested in doing as well. So I'm definitely going to have a look at that. And I know your health work's always hugely valuable. So thank you, Glenn. So yeah, you can check Glenn's content out on Instagram, but we'll also put some information about the reset as well in the show notes. So once again, a big thank you, Glenn, for coming on today.
Thank you, Johnny.
Appreciate it. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember, you are in control of your own self-esteem and confidence.